It was too hot for a leather jacket in South Central, even in spring. The sun burned overhead, and the asphalt shimmered like it might melt under her boots. But she stood still, hands in her pockets, one finger brushing against a small plastic bag hidden deep in the lining. She didn't flinch when the squad car rolled up. Didn't blink when the two cops stepped out, already cracking their knuckles and grinning like they'd just hit the jackpot. "Ma'am, you mind telling us what you're doing out here?" Officer Barnes asked, voice all sugar and menace. She looked him dead in the eye. "I was hoping you'd arrest me," she said. The pause was just long enough to register disbelief, then came the rough hands, the metal cuffs, the shove against the hood. She didn't fight it. She welcomed it. As they pushed her into the back seat, Ramos leaned in close. "You know what they do to girls like you in holding?" She smiled. "I get one phone call, right?" Barnes snorted. "Yeah. Just one." She waited until they were 5 minutes from the precinct. The silence in the car thickened, twisted around the corners of the cops' smirks. And then she dialed. No hesitation. The voice on the other end picked up after one ring. "This is Chief James Grayson." "Hi, baby," she said, calm as ever. "Your wife just got arrested. I need you to watch the security feed when I walk in. And, maybe turn on the news." Silence. Then, his voice dropped. "Understood." She hung up. Barnes glanced at her in the mirror, his grin faltering for the first time. "What? You think the big man's gonna save you?" She met his eyes and said, without blinking. "No. I'm here to ruin you." The precinct smelled like sweat, coffee, and quiet corruption. They dragged her in like she was just another statistic, another black woman with a charge, a record, and no one to call. But they didn't know who she was. Not really. Officer Ramos shoved her forward. "Booking first." The sergeant at the desk barely looked up. "Name?" She didn't answer. Just looked at the camera above the booking station, the one she knew fed directly into the chief's secure line. "Name?" the sergeant barked again. "Mrs. Emery Grayson," she said evenly. "Wife of James Grayson. Chief of Police. LAPD." The room froze. For a second, just a second, you could hear the buzzing of the overhead lights. Then Barnes laughed. Loud and forced. "Nice try, lady." Ramos looked less sure. "She just said she was." "Bullshit," Barnes cut in. "You think the chief's wife is walking around with crack in her damn pocket?" She smiled again. That same calm, surgical smile. "You didn't even test the substance, did you?" Barnes glanced at the baggie in the evidence tray. "I don't need to," he growled. "We've got probable cause." "Right," she said. "And what do you think the cameras caught when you slammed me into the hood for no reason?" He opened his mouth to answer. And then the door to the bullpen slammed open. A lieutenant stepped in, eyes wide, phone in hand. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Where's Emery Grayson?" Everyone turned. The lieutenant's face was pale. Sweating. He walked straight up to Barnes and whispered something in his ear. Barnes stiffened. "What do you mean, Internal Affairs is watching live?" The moment the patrol car rolled into the precinct, Emery felt it, that shift in air. Like the oxygen was thicker here, soaked in sweat and secrets. The doors creaked open, and the cuffs were tugged harder than they needed to be. Officer Barnes sneered, "Welcome home, sweetheart." As she stepped inside, fluorescent lights buzzed above, too bright, too fake, the perfect setting for the kind of justice that only looked clean. The sergeant at the desk barely raised his head. "Another one?" "Caught her red-handed," Ramos said, tossing a small evidence bag onto the counter. "Crack cocaine." Emery didn't even glance at it. Because she knew, the powder inside wasn't cocaine. It was powdered sugar, laced with a harmless dye. Designed in a lab. Legal. Untraceable. She had receipts. But they didn't know that. Not yet. Name? The booking officer asked, flatly. Barnes leaned in, ready for a laugh. Tell Missy. Let's hear your fake-ass name. Emery turned slowly, meeting the sergeant's gaze head-on. Emery Elise Grayson. Pause. Wife of James Grayson. Chief of the LAPD. The air went still. The booking officer's pen stopped mid-scratch. Ramos shifted his weight. Barnes laughed, forced, too loud. Oh, that's rich. She's serious? Ramos muttered. I don't give a damn if she says she's Beyoncé, Barnes snapped. Book her. Full process. They walked her to the holding phone, dirty, cracked, still warm from the last poor soul who begged for bail. Make it fast, said Barnes, arms crossed. Emery didn't hesitate. She dialed one number. No contacts. No hesitation. It rang once. This is Chief Grayson. His voice, cold, sharp. Trained for emergencies. Hi, baby, she said, loud enough for the room to hear. Barnes blinked. I'm at 14th Precinct, she continued. Arrested for possession. A pause on the line. You all right? For now, she said. Turn on the internal security feed. And the news. And then she hung up. No goodbye. No explanation. Just thunder in her eyes. 10 minutes later, something shifted. Phones buzzed. The sergeant at the desk received a notification and paled. He looked at Barnes. Then back at Emery. Another officer burst through the side door, holding his phone like it burned. Yo. Internal Affairs just pinged our server. Live monitor request from the chief's encrypted channel. The room froze. Barnes opened his mouth. Closed it again. That's probably fake, he muttered. Ramos was already pulling up his tablet. The feed was live. Security cameras. Holding cells. Booking. Lobby. And in the center of it all, her. You set this up, Ramos whispered. Emery tilted her head, studying him like a scientist watching bacteria multiply. No, she said. I anticipated you. There's a difference. Barnes lunged forward, voice rising. This is entrapment. She didn't even blink. Entrapment requires a lie. I gave you every chance to treat me like a human being. You chose the cage. It's a setup. It's a mirror, she said. And you don't like what you see. Lieutenant Marquez stormed in. Tall, sharp, and furious. He looked at Barnes. Then Emery. Then the bag on the desk. What the hell is this? Possession, Barnes said quickly. We caught her. With sugar, Emery interrupted. Marquez blinked. She just admitted it. Barnes shouted. To exposing your incompetence? Yes. I did. Marquez opened the evidence bag. Sniffed it. Paused. Where's your field test report? Silence. You tested it, right? More silence. Oh my God, Ramos whispered. Internal Affairs swarmed the building in waves. Suits and scanners, portable hard drives, grim faces. Barnes and Ramos were escorted to separate rooms. Phones confiscated. Computers logged out remotely. Emery sat in a conference room with bulletproof glass, sipping stale coffee like it was champagne. Across from her sat an IA agent with tired eyes and a very sharp mind. You just took a match to a building full of gasoline, the agent said. No, Emery replied, calm. I handed out smoke alarms 3 years ago. No one listened. As they replayed the bodycam footage, it became clear. Barnes never read her rights. Ramos muttered a racial slur under his breath. The arrest had been aggressive. The evidence was never tested. Emery's voice echoed through the clip. You didn't even ask who I was. I'm here to ruin you. The agent leaned back. You knew this would happen. Emery set down her cup. I hoped it would. Outside, the media had caught wind. News vans. Reporters. Activists. Chief's wife arrested by rogue officers. LAPD under fire again. Reform or revenge? People were watching. The city was holding its breath. Barnes watched through the blinds, sweat on his forehead. This is career suicide. And from the hallway, Emery's voice floated through the open door. No. This is career surgery. A reporter shouted toward the precinct. Mrs. Grayson. Why did you do this? And for the first time, she stepped outside. Camera flashes burst like fireworks. She looked dead into the lens. Calm. Unapologetic. Because no one listens to a whisper. But everyone hears a woman scream while burning the building down. And the system? The system finally blinked. Barnes's jaw twitched. Ramos took a step back, like the stink of trouble just hit him in the face. Lieutenant Marquez didn't wait. You two better pray those cameras glitched, because Internal Affairs is watching every second. Chief Grayson just called a full audit on this precinct. Starting with your last arrest. Emery stood tall, chin lifted. Her wrists still cuffed, but she looked freer than any of them. Uncuff her, Marquez ordered. Barnes hesitated. I said, uncuff her. The moment the cuffs hit the floor, Emery rubbed her wrists slowly, deliberately. Her eyes locked with Barnes's. You thought I was just some angry black woman with a record, she said. You never thought to ask who I really was. Barnes's voice cracked. You set us up. No, she said calmly. You set yourselves up. I just turned on the lights. The holding room wasn't built for dignity. Flickering lights overhead. Chipped paint. Stains on the floor that no one bothered to clean anymore. Emery sat in a cold metal chair, her wrists raw from the cuffs, but her posture was unshaken. Still. Calculated. Alive. She could feel it, the beginning of the unraveling. Not her unraveling. Theirs. Injustice had a hum. A vibration. And today, it buzzed in the walls like a swarm waking up. The door slammed open. Lieutenant Marquez, tall, suit wrinkled, sweat at his collar. Furious. His phone was in one hand, an iPad in the other, and his voice carried like a gavel. Where is she? Barnes stepped forward, still defensive. She's a fake. Claims she's the chief's wife. Marquez cut him off with a glare. Then turned to Emery. Ma'am. I'm going to need you to stand up. His tone had shifted, from command to caution. Like he'd just realized he'd been handed a grenade with the pin halfway out. Uncuff her, Marquez said. Barnes flinched. Sir, I said. Uncuff her. Silence rippled through the room like glass cracking. Ramos hesitated. For the first time, he looked afraid. The cuffs came off with a sharp clack, louder than it should have been. Emery didn't rub her wrists. She didn't need to show pain. She wanted them to wonder why she wasn't angry. She turned to Marquez. I hope you've been watching the news. He nodded slowly. The whole damn city is. What is this? Marquez asked. A trap? Emery looked him in the eye. No. A reveal. He stared at her, Then at Barnes. Did you Mirandize her? Barnes stammered. It was fast. We were in the moment. You didn't Mirandize the chief's wife. More silence. Marquez's voice dropped an octave. And the evidence? Barnes gestured weakly. Looked like crack. Looked like. Did you test it? The room went dead quiet. That was all the answer Marquez needed. Meanwhile, on the second floor, chaos bloomed. Internal Affairs had taken over a tech office, watching real-time body cam streams and audio logs. Every recorded second of the arrest was being reviewed by 3 agents in sharp suits and colder eyes. Agent Lin, the lead investigator, muttered. They didn't even test it. They didn't even ask her who she was. Jesus. Another agent leaned forward. Get me everything on Barnes and Ramos. I want their last 6 months of arrests. All of them. Back in the conference room, Emery leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the table. Do you know why I chose this precinct? Ramos looked confused. Barnes still seethed. This is where Officer Javon Tillman was beaten in holding. Marquez blinked. That case was dropped. Because evidence went missing, Emery said coldly. Because body cams malfunctioned. Because this building is where black men and women come in bruised and leave broken, and no one does a damn thing. She leaned back. Calm. Deadly. Until now. The flash drive she'd hidden inside her bra had already been passed to IA. A preloaded bomb of evidence. Phone recordings. Video leaks. Redacted internal memos. Patterns. You've been watching for months, Agent Lin said. Years, Emery corrected. Lin sat back, stunned. And you waited until now? Emery looked out the window. No one listens until you scream. The hallway echoed with voices. Some shouting. Some whispering. A junior officer, a young Latina in her first year, quietly slipped a folder onto a supervisor's desk. Inside, a full written complaint against Barnes from last year. Ignored. Now it would be evidence. People were turning. Not out of conscience, but out of survival. The system wasn't just blinking. It was shaking. From his office on the top floor, Chief Grayson watched the live feed. His wife, poised and dangerous. His officers, unraveling by the second. He didn't speak. Didn't smile. But when his assistant asked, "Do you want me to go down there?" he simply said, "She's got this." Barnes tried to regain ground. "This won't stick," he said. "You think people will care? You think anyone's gonna remember your little performance once the next story drops?" Emery stood. Walked over slowly. Stared him down like a queen looking at a fallen pawn. "People don't forget scars," she whispered. "They trace them with their fingers and remember who gave them." She paused. Let the silence stretch. "You didn't just arrest the chief's wife today," she added. "You gave a city a reason to finally look up." She walked out before he could speak. And for the first time, Barnes was truly quiet. Internal Affairs didn't come quietly. By noon, 5 investigators had taken over 3 offices. Laptops were confiscated. Body cam footage pulled. Phones locked down. Emery sat in a conference room, now uncuffed and sipping coffee. A woman in a gray suit walked in, Agent Lin, lead on IA's corruption division. "We traced the false entries. Doctored reports. Missing footage. Some of it leads back over a year." Emery nodded. "Longer." Lin blinked. "How do you know that?" Emery slid a flash drive across the table. "Because I've been watching your cops longer than you have." Agent Lin looked at her, stunned. "You're not just the chief's wife, are you?" Emery smiled, cold and proud. I'm the one who made him chief. The conference room felt colder now. Outside the glass wall, a dozen officers were pretending to work, eyes flicking toward Emery every few seconds. Like they couldn't believe she was real. Like she'd stepped out of a different movie and ruined their script. Agent Lin closed the door behind her and dropped a thick file on the table. Her nails were clean. Her tone wasn't. You planned this sting, by yourself? Emery gave her a slow, unflinching look. I planned the trap. They walked into it willingly. On the table between them was a small black USB drive. Unassuming. Light. But it held hell. Hidden body cam footage. Doctored timestamps. Internal memos marked, "Do not forward." Testimonies from silenced whistleblowers. One video of Barnes with his boot on a teen's neck, laughing. Lynn hadn't even finished reviewing it. What she'd seen so far was enough to put 5 officers under federal review. You've been sitting on this, she said. For how long? 2 years, Emery said. 3 terabytes total. Lynn blinked. Holy shit. Across town, Chief Grayson stood at a podium. Cameras flashing. News vans swarming like bees. The LAPD will conduct a full, independent investigation into every precinct tied to the incidents revealed this morning. His voice was calm. Scripted. Controlled. But in his left hand, hidden behind the podium, his fingers tapped a nervous rhythm. The press didn't know that the woman who detonated this chaos shared his bed. Knew all his passwords. And wasn't afraid of him. Because she didn't come from his world. She came from below it. Back at the precinct, Agent Lin lowered her voice. You know what's going to happen now, right? They'll smear you. They'll leak personal files. Frame you as unstable. Vindictive. Emery didn't flinch. They've tried before. Lin studied her. You don't talk like a victim. That's because I'm not. And you don't talk like a cop. That's because I'm done pretending to play by their rules. That was the moment Lin realized. She wasn't dealing with a witness. She was dealing with a weapon. IA's tech team plugged in the flash drive. The screen filled with folders. Everything's encrypted, one of them muttered. But the metadata's untouched. Look at this, edited report logs. Audio fragments labeled delete. This one's a phone call, wait. They played it. Barnes's voice came through the speakers. No one cares what they say. Just write up whatever you want. Make sure it sounds clean. The room went quiet. Is this recent? Lin asked. 3 weeks ago, the tech said. Any idea who he was talking to? A pause. Then, Ramos. Later that evening, Emery was allowed to retrieve her personal items. Her jacket. Her phone. And the notebook. Old, leather-bound. Faded edges. Pages filled with careful notes, names, dates, diagrams of corruption like spiderwebs. It was a map of silence. Names of officers with complaints ignored. Victims without case numbers. Judges with bias. District attorneys who had coffee with monsters and signed off on harmless violence. She'd kept it all. One page was dog-eared. Javon Tillman, bruises on kidneys, no charges filed. Next to it, a small note in her handwriting. What happens when no one listens? Across social media, the first wave started. Emery Grayson has a history of mental health issues. Unstable woman set up innocent officers. This is just political theater. Where's the footage of the actual arrest? Another angry black woman with a vendetta. It came from burner accounts. Bots. Fake news blogs. Ramos's cousin posted a blurry photo of Emery and James at a private event. So much for objectivity. This is a power couple playing both sides. Emery watched the storm unfold on her screen. She didn't blink. She bookmarked every lie. Agent Lin returned with a folder. This is the formal request. IA wants to debrief you as a primary informant. You'll be protected, but it'll be public. You'll be hated. I already am, Emery said. You could walk away right now. We'll still take the drive. Still press charges. You don't have to be the face of this. Emery stood, slow and deliberate. Walked to the window. The city was glowing beneath the sunset. Sirens in the distance. Cameras flashing outside the precinct gates. I didn't do this to be the face, she said. I did this so they'd have to look at one. Chief Grayson received a private text message. Locked, IA is moving forward. She stayed in. He didn't reply. Just stared at the message, then deleted it. Behind him, one of his advisors whispered, "Sir, this will burn a lot of bridges." He finally spoke. Good. Some bridges lead to nowhere. Then he stepped onto a live interview stage, calm, collected, charismatic, while a fire burned just beneath his words. He wasn't trying to stop the blaze. He was guiding it. Barnes sat alone in a dark interrogation room. No cuffs. No rights read yet. Just silence. The door opened. Emery stood there. She didn't speak. Didn't sit. Just stared. Barnes shifted, uncomfortable. You think you're better than us, he spat. She tilted her head. No, she whispered. I think I'm done asking for equality from men who mistake it for permission. She turned. Walked away. And behind her, Barnes exhaled sharply, like someone who just realized they weren't the predator anymore. Back in the bullpen, whispers were turning into shouts. Barnes had gone pale. Ramos kept pacing. One rookie had already confessed to fabricating 3 arrest reports. When the story hit the local news, it exploded. Chief's wife arrested in sting operation to expose corruption within LAPD. Outside, crowds began forming. Protesters, press, supporters. One reporter shouted. Mrs. Grayson, were you afraid you wouldn't make it out alive? She paused. Looked into the cameras. And said. Yes. The silence that followed was louder than any siren. The precinct was no longer a workplace. It was a pressure cooker. Officers whispered in corners, avoided eye contact. Everyone knew something was happening. No one said it out loud. It wasn't just the arrest. It was who she was. And what she had. Barnes hadn't been seen since the interview room. Ramos was pale, jittery, sweating through his collar. And Emery? She walked the halls like gravity didn't apply to her anymore. TVs in the break room blinked and turned red with the word breaking. Wife of LAPD chief orchestrates sting operation against corrupt officers. Civil rights groups demand mass investigation into LAPD internal practices. Emery Grayson, hero or manipulator? Clips of her arrest looped across channels. Freeze frames. Her face. Her name. Her silence. Outside, the crowd swelled. Inside, panic spread. One young officer whispered, "Are we, the bad guys?" No one answered. Ramos locked himself in the evidence room. He paced like a rat in a burning box. His hands trembled. His phone kept buzzing, friends, reporters, someone from HR. He finally answered one. "I didn't do anything," he snapped. "She set us up." But his voice cracked. Because even he didn't believe that anymore. On the other end, silence. Then. "You need to lawyer up. Now." The email dropped at 11:47 a.m. Anonymous. No subject line. Every newsroom in Los Angeles received the same file. Speaker high volume audio recording, Officer Barnes. Date, 3 weeks prior. Location, the Fox and Barrel Bar. Barnes, laughing, you think they're gonna listen to a black chick crying foul? Hell no. We clean it up later. Always do. The reaction was instant. Social media caught fire. City officials scrambled. And Chief Grayson got a message from his assistant. It's out. Game's changed. Emery sat in a private office now. Not locked up. Not cuffed. Free, but not untouched. Her fingers hovered over her phone screen, watching a live stream of the protest outside. People held signs. Justice for Tillman. Protect Emery. Burn the blue wall. But her face was tired. Not triumphant, just hollow. Agent Lin entered quietly. It's working, she said. You cracked the wall. Emery didn't look away from the screen. They'll rebuild it. Her email flooded. Liar. Hope you enjoy hell, whore. You ruined good men's lives. We know where you live. This city doesn't belong to you. She read them all. Every single one. Then deleted them. One at a time. With care. Like sweeping up broken glass. In a rare public address, James Grayson stood at City Hall. The LAPD is not above the law. No officer is untouchable. Including those in my own house. Gasps. Murmurs. Flashes. I will not protect corruption. Even if it shares my last name. He stepped off the podium and ignored every question. But in his eyes, there was war. He hadn't just supported her. He'd taken a side. And now, he couldn't turn back. That evening, a dozen civil rights lawyers held a press conference. They cited Emery's flash drive, her timeline, and declared open legal support. 2 politicians followed suit, demanding legislative hearings. One veteran activist took the mic. What Emery Grayson did was not an act of rebellion. It was an act of repair. And just like that, she wasn't alone anymore. At 2 a.m., Emery sat alone in the precinct's observation room, lights dim, eyes burning. She hadn't slept. Her phone buzzed. Chief Grayson. She didn't answer. The adrenaline had worn off. All that was left was silence, and the crushing weight of everything she'd set in motion. For a moment, she thought. What if they still win? What if the city forgets in a week? What if they break me quietly next month? But then she remembered Barnes's laugh on that tape. And the anger came back like fire. The next morning, she agreed to speak. Live. 1 interview. 1 camera. She wore no makeup. No PR team. Just her truth. The reporter asked. Were you afraid you wouldn't make it out alive that day? Emery paused. Looked straight into the lens. Of course I was. A silence stretched. But I was more afraid of staying quiet for the rest of my life. And with that. The world listened. That night, a secret meeting. Chief Grayson stood in the center of his office, looking out the window as the city boiled outside. Emery entered without knocking. You're going to lose friends over this, she said. James turned, his face unreadable. They weren't friends. You ready to burn it all down? He didn't blink. I married a woman who lit the first match. I've just been holding the gas can. Behind them, the TV showed Barnes being escorted out in cuffs. You know this isn't the end, James added. They'll fight back. Hard. Emery's voice was razor-sharp. Then we fight harder. Somewhere in downtown LA, a private boardroom buzzed with tension. The air smelled like old whiskey, fear, and air conditioning. Chief James Grayson sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by a dozen powerful men and women, police union reps, politicians, lawyers. Not one of them smiled. A man in a gray suit leaned forward. "You can't protect her and keep this department intact." Grayson didn't blink. "I'm not here to protect the department. I'm here to protect justice." That was the moment the knives came out, metaphorically, for now. A union rep spoke next, calm and lethal. "She's burning our credibility. If you let her keep going, you'll lose more than your job. You'll lose control." Another added. "The city council's nervous. They want reassurance. They don't want a martyr. They want quiet." James leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Funny," he said. "You were all real quiet when bodies started stacking up with no paperwork." His voice dropped. "She's not the problem. She's the spotlight." Later that night, James and Emery stood in their kitchen. The city buzzed beyond the window. Neither spoke for a long time. He poured 2 glasses of wine. Only one was touched. "You know they're coming after me now too," he said finally. Emery nodded. "I know. You still trust me?" She looked at him for a long, long second. Then turned away. Which said everything. The next day, Emery met Agent Lynn in a secure room. Lynn laid out a file across the table, stamped confidential. "We're moving toward indictments," she said. "Barnes. Ramos. 2 others. Maybe more. But there's a problem." "What kind?" "A judge." Lynn slid the photo forward, white, male, mid-50s. "Clean record. Public patriot. Secret bigot. He's blocked multiple subpoenas. Soft connections to 2 precincts under investigation." "You want me to expose him?" Emery asked. Lynn hesitated. "We want you to record a conversation. Discreetly." That night, Emery was invited to a charity gala, the kind filled with empty smiles, glittering donations, and very real corruption. The judge was there. So were the cameras. Emery walked in wearing black silk and cold fire in her veins. She sipped red wine while inching closer to the man who'd buried truth for years. When he greeted her, he said, "Mrs. Grayson. Quite the voice you found lately." She smiled back. "Funny. I was always speaking. You just weren't listening." The mic under her dress caught every word that followed. The judge talked too much. He thought she was playing politics. That she'd come to deal. To negotiate. So he bragged. About favors. About pressure. About keeping the streets in order. And when he said, "Sometimes you've gotta lose a few to keep control," Emery's fingers gripped her glass tighter, but her smile never broke. Later that night, she handed the audio file to IA. Make him the next headline. James Grayson stood alone in his office. His phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters. Staff. His deputy chief. His mother. On the desk, 2 sealed envelopes. One marked, Internal Affairs Review. The other, a resignation letter. Just in case. He stared at both. Then swiped them aside. He picked up the phone and said just one word. Proceed. That evening, an old friend, Captain Wallace, met James in a parking garage. "You're gonna take us all down with her," Wallace said. "I'm cleaning house," James replied. "And if that includes you." Wallace cut him off. "You think she's doing this for justice? She's doing it for you. To see if you'll stand." James froze. "She wants to know if she married a badge, or a man." Then Wallace walked away, leaving James in silence. Back home, Emery sat at her desk with her notebook open again. One more name added. One more red underline. James stood in the doorway. "You think I'm still worthy of you?" he asked. Emery looked up, tired but honest. "That's not the question." "What is?" She stared him down. "The question is, do you still deserve me after all this?" The morning after, charges were filed against 4 LAPD officers. The judge resigned, for family reasons. Headlines exploded. Justice turns inside the LAPD. Chief's wife exposes multi-level corruption. Public approval of Emery Grayson soars. Emery stood at the window of the precinct, watching reporters swarm. Behind her, Lynn asked, "What's next?" Weeks passed. Charges filed. Careers ended. Civil suits launched. Barnes refused to speak, until the audio dropped. A leaked recording. Barnes bragging in a bar 2 weeks before Emery's arrest. "Don't matter who they are. You're black in the wrong place. You disappear. We write the truth later." The city lost its mind. People took to the streets. Officials were fired overnight. Laws were proposed. And Emery? She waited. Not for revenge. For justice. The courtroom was packed. Emery took the stand, calm as ever, in a navy blazer and no apology. She looked directly at the jury. "I didn't do this to make headlines. I did this because I was tired of screaming into a system that only listens when you burn it to the ground." Her voice didn't waver. "I'm not a symbol. I'm not a martyr. I'm not the chief's wife. I'm Emery Grayson. And I demand better." When the verdicts came down, guilty, 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 a wave of relief crashed over the city. But Emery didn't celebrate. She just walked out of the courtroom, into the sunlight, into the crowd that had waited for her. Someone asked, "What's next?" She looked straight ahead. "We rebuild." Months later, a mural appeared downtown. A black woman, uncuffed, her head held high. Spray painted underneath in red. She didn't ask for change. She forced it. No signature. But everyone knew. Her name was Emery.